Okay. Josh, thank you for having us up to your little hideaway.
Thanks so much for visiting. It's great to finally meet you in person.
Yeah, the river and your little family is great. Thank you very much. Fort Collins is beautiful.
Yeah, we have a good time here.
So let's get to it. Josh, tell me a little bit about what you do and your train of events that led you to this point of writing this wonderful book.
Yeah, so my name is Josh Kauffman. I am the author of The Personal MBA, Master the Art of Business, that just came out a little while ago. And the short version of the story is I'm a business teacher. I help craftsmen and programmers and designers and folks who have very useful skills that are valuable. They just don't know how to run the business side of things. And so instead of spending a lot of time and money going to school, what I help people do is understand the basics, the essentials of how every business works. And so they can approach their business as a system and either create a new one that works the first time instead of going through a bunch of painful trial and error, or take a system that already exists in some fashion and just make it better, make it run more efficiently, make more money, have more fun doing what they're doing.
And with the title of the book, the obvious overall message is you don't have to get an MBA to be a success at business.
Exactly.
And that's where you and I have a lot of parallels. We connected a couple of months ago, and the idea that you have to jump through these certain hoops to get to this certain place up here is ridiculous.
Right.
So,
yeah, there are no hoops, and really a lot of people think that you have to run a business in a particular way in order to be successful, and that's not true at all. It's just what do you want the business to be, and then how do you set up the business systems to deliver the result you want. That's it.
I love it when you say systems.
Yeah. We both teach the same thing. We just teach it in different ways.
So you've read thousands of books about business, and you've condensed those books into this wonderful this masterpiece you've done here.
Well, thank you.
And it's what I love about it is a nutshell summary of all the necessary points. And I read the back of the book, which had to do with systems, which led up to those very important last chapters about systems. And I got a lot out of it because I'm a systems guy. In my book, Work the System.
Yep.
The Simple Mechanics of Making More and Working Less is about systems. And I thought, I went to school with this guy, or we had the same teacher or something. You said all the same things I said and way more in a different way. And it was just wonderful and refreshing to read your book. So thank you for writing it.
Thank you. And thank you for writing your book. This was, I think I found Work the System shortly after the first edition was published. So I've been following the general framework for a long, long time. And a lot of just the idea of approaching a business as a system instead of this thing that's very difficult to understand or complex thing, really breaking it down and understanding how one part flows into the next and how you can make it repeatable and make it something that doesn't drive you crazy, was one of the things that I appreciated most about Work the System. And it helps people understand how stressful not having business systems can be, and how awesome it is when you finally get things into place and your business starts running as a system, which is really what it is in the first place.
You know, what's interesting is my third edition is coming up here shortly, and as I put in the preface to the third edition, I said, well, I'm better at explaining things, I'm a better writer, but especially some things have cemented in my head better, and one of those things was how business is a machine. Leave the emotional part out. It's a machine, and you have to treat it like a machine. In fact, and Linda, my wife Linda, put it so well that, because I always have somebody in my audience I'm talking about it's a mechanical thing, and you have to do this. And they're like this. And we were in Amsterdam a few weeks ago, and there was a couple ladies in the audience, and they were in the public school system over there. No, we need to be more sensitive. I mean, who is this middle-aged white guy coming over from America, and he's just as insensitive as I knew he would be. You have to have more feeling, and you have to understand people, and you have to do this and this and this. And I understand that, but as Linda put it, and she put it beautifully, I couldn't put it in my words, and I wrote the book. She did. She said that, hey, we're stuck in a mechanical world. We're stuck in a mechanical world. Sorry about that. I know we want it to be free and peaceful and flowing and prosperous and everything, but we're stuck here. We're stuck in this physical, mechanical world. And if that's the case, let's take care of the mechanics and get them automated, delegated, eliminate some of them, get the mechanics under control, get the cash flow going if you have a business, take care of the mechanics, and you'll have lots of time to, people say smell the flowers, lots of time to do the other things you want to do. And so I went from 100 hours a week to 2 hours a week. That gives me, if I want to work or have 100 hours to do something in my life, I have 98 hours to do whatever the heck I want. Because the machinery, the business that I have is Centratel. It's a machine. It's a money-making machine. And I do 2 hours a week, and so the money flows. And that applies to any business, right?
Right.
I mean, you've got to be sensitive to your people. You've got to empower them and all that stuff. But if they're stumbling over the mechanics and they're doing the same things over and over again that could be done with software or not at all maybe, how are you ever going to find a relaxed, prosperous existence if the mechanics keep gumming the works?
Yeah,
right?
And the hesitation I see with a lot of the clients that I work with, they usually come from creative backgrounds. And so if you have a designer or an artist or a programmer who is really interested in the creative aspect of what they do, the hesitation is like, oh my gosh, I can't do all the system and process stuff because that's going to suck all of the joy and the craftsmanship out of what I'm doing. And it's actually the exact opposite. Because if you don't have these systems, businesses are just repeatable processes that are designed to produce a particular result, which is a happy customer and more money in the bank. No, that's really it. And the more time and energy you waste running around like a chicken with your head cut off trying to do the same thing over and over but reinvent the wheel every time, or freak out because you're thinking you're forgetting something or overlooking something or whatever, those are the things that take away from the craftsmanship.
They're eating you up already.
Totally. And so it's funny that people's hesitation of doing the systems work is actually quite the opposite. Once you get the systems in place, you have more time and energy to actually focus on your art, focus on the creativity, focus on the things that you really enjoy about running your business instead of being crazy all the time.
That's the ironic part of it.
Yeah.
So I start a presentation to a group, and I'm talking about the mechanics and everything, and I'm getting better at entering it in a softer way. They are just pushing back, pushing back, pushing back, when I'm saying exactly the opposite. Let's take this mechanical stuff and get rid of it altogether, so you can be the creative person you want to be.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Yannick Silver just a couple of days ago, and he says, and he makes a point of it, I can't put a website together to this day.
Right.
Multi-millionaire on his own in internet marketing. And I sat there with him and I said, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I don't get that part either. So you get the people, there are mechanics that will have to run. You get your systems in place, but you need people to get the systems in place, and then you need people to keep the systems running properly. You need mechanically oriented people to do that.
Absolutely.
So my COO, Andy, and my IT guy, Dan, and my Holly, our staff manager at Centratel, which is a telephone answering service, they're all very systematic and really understand the beauty of taking the time to put together a working procedure, for example, or following the principles that we've established. And they carry the ball for me as I do all this creative stuff, like coming out here to Colorado and meeting with you.
Right. It's a beautiful system.
Yeah, it's all a system. So why don't you talk a little bit about how you put your book together, Josh, and why? And I totally recommend, you have to have this book if you're in business. It's called The Personal MBA. But go ahead and tell me a little bit about how you put it together and how it will benefit somebody and what they should be looking for in it.
Sure. The book is really designed to teach the fundamentals of how every single business works. It doesn't matter if you're starting up your own venture in a garage making furniture, or whether you're dealing with a Fortune 50 corporation. businesses are systems. They all function in very similar ways when you get down to the essentials. So what I tried to do in the Personal MBA is really break down, there's a very small set of ideas that apply to every single business. And whether you're going to start a business yourself or you're looking for people to help you start a business, the more you understand about these basic concepts, the better you're able to actually go out into the world and do things right the first time, because you're already thinking of the essentials that need to be there. So really the intent of the book is to teach people the basics, get them up to speed on all of the important parts about running a business, working with yourself, working with other people, setting up and improving business systems, and then make people dangerous enough to actually go out in the world and start trying the stuff and just keep improving and improving and improving over time. And the social part of the book is this stuff isn't hard to learn. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. A lot of it is very simple and straightforward. So you don't have to, for example, enroll in an Ivy League MBA program and spend 2 years and $100,000 of your own money.
Only
doing
100?
Only 100.
I was going to say 200.
Yeah, actually, the latest
The blue blood MBA.
It's getting crazy. The latest estimate that I saw is attending the Harvard 2-year MBA program, when you account for lost wages, opportunity costs, living expenses, is $400,000 now.
Oh
all
my
in.
gosh.
And so, yeah, so instead of going to school, spending a lot of money, or getting into a lot of debt if you don't have the money already, pick up the book, learn the stuff, and actually get started in business, and you'll do much better.
I remember in your book a portion that said that so much that's taught in these MBA curriculums just doesn't apply.
Right.
It just doesn't apply. And what I love what you've done with the book is it's in bite-sized chunks. They flow from one to another in a very rational manner. But you can sit down and in 4 minutes read a chunk and absorb that, and the next chunk is different. But it all flows along. It's just really a very well put together book, and you are to be congratulated. I know you're having great success with it.
Thank you.
And I was flattered that you liked my book.
Huge fan.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm flattered.
It's actually one of the first books when I start working with a new client. I always recommend Work the System as one of the first.
What is it that you liked about Work the System that affected you?
I think the biggest thing that I like about Work the System is people have this sense that systems are somehow boring, or somehow they're not very creative. It's not a sexy topic. But when you actually sit down and you think about the systems and you start doing this, it's almost the sexiest topic, because you get the most results when you start thinking in this way.
Right.
So for me, what I really liked is reading, during the first part of the book, reading the story of you building and running Centratel, and having a lot of hardships along the way, and really coming to the realization that this system stuff is fundamental. It's really important. And kind of vicariously experiencing your pain in the early days really drives home the point of how important this stuff is. And then you set up the back half of the book brilliantly in terms of, okay, this is what I was facing. Here are the systems improvements that I made in Centratel, and this was the result. And then, tie it all together in this is how you can set up systems in your own business. I mean, just making people care, giving them the essentials, giving them some practical things that they can do in their own business. I say this without hyperbole. It is one of the most useful business books that I have ever come across. And it's because it makes people care and it gives them something tangible that will give results to them, which is the whole, in my opinion, the whole point of reading a business book in the first place.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, tell me, Josh, we talked earlier and you said you had some other books in you.
I do.
Tell me about that.
I am actually very, very interested in the idea of learning and figuring out how you can learn and master new skills more quickly than you may otherwise by default. So I'm calling this area of research rapid skill acquisition. How can you take something you want to learn, whether it is sketching a portrait or playing the guitar or mountain climbing or whatever it is you want to do, there's a certain amount of both conceptual things you need to learn as well as real-world skills that you need to practice and master.
Remember in the book, was it Warren Buffett, the richest man in the world?
Yes.
He said, somebody asked him, what's next? Or there was some phraseology that was used, but his answer to whatever that question was, I wish I could read faster.
Yes, or what superpower do you wish you could have?
That was it.
And that was actually Bill Gates and Warren Buffett at a conference together, and that's what they said. If I could do anything better, it would be read faster.
To learn, to keep learning going.
And the craziest thing is there are techniques that you can learn that will triple your reading speed. And they're not complicated. They just require a little bit of learning and a little bit of practice. But that investment there, you reap rewards for every single book that you ever read in the rest of your life. So that's
where can we find out about that?
There's actually a really great book that I recommend to folks by Abby Marksbiel called 10 Days to Faster Reading.
10 Days to Faster Reading.
Yeah, and it's a book about how to read books and consume information, but do it in a way that you move through the material more quickly, but you also retain more of what you read. And a lot of that comes from understanding that when you read a book, you don't have to read it, open it up on page 1 and go word for word, line by line until you get to the end. You're probably reading it with some purpose, something you want to do with it. So if you figure out all the things you want to get out of the book first, and then do a few very basic techniques to preview the book and go through it to try to figure out how it's all organized, you can flip through the book very quickly, 15 to 20 minutes.
You get the gist of the book even before you begin reading it by carefully going through the table of contents and flipping through it.
Yep.
And then you go through and pull the meat out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you end up both learning and retaining more doing it the easy way, the fast way, than you would if you spent, say, an hour a day over the course of 5 or 6 days reading it, because you're doing it all at once, and so you can make the connections between things much better. So, and it's a skill. You learn how to do it, and you practice it, and then you can sit down with a book and pull the meat out of it in 15 or 20 minutes, and then you have so much more time to read more books or do other things you enjoy.
So we're both system guys.
Yep.
And we both kind of got to the same place. And I'm always fascinated to ask people, well, the system mentality came to you either over a length of time or it came to you in a snap. That's how it came to me. So you have this system mentality. Describe how it affects the softer part of your life, your family life, and the things away from your profession here. How does it affect the other things you do in your life? Sure.
I would say it affects everything. Particularly on the family side of things. I run a business. My wife Kelsey runs a business. And even major life decisions like buying a house or moving to another part of the country, they're all projects. They all have systems elements that are involved.
Linear flow.
Exactly.
Linear flow.
And we, when we're in the process of making those decisions, we have things that we want out of them. So what we try to do is put together some type of rational process. It's like, what are the things that we're facing right now? What don't we know? And what do we want to get out of this when all is said and done? And then it's really just a matter of figuring out, okay, what do we need to go out and learn? What information do we need to collect? What decisions do we need to make? And are there things that we can do, either in the information collection or the decision making, to make it easier? So to make certain things happen by default instead of require a choice. So when Kelsey and I's daughter Leela was born, one of the
6 months ago.
6 months ago, yeah, it's crazy. Time flies. One of the very best things that we did was contact a house cleaner and say, we need you to show up every week at this time. And so it was an area of life that we could just forget about, but we made a single decision. It happened over and over and over again. We cut a check and it just happened. And that's a very basic idea of a system, right? Repeatable process that gives you a result. You make the decision once and it just happens automatically. So, and Kelsey and I's marriage is much, much better for it. It was a great investment of money. So yeah, I mean, the systems principles really applies to everything. It's not just a business.
So my daughter, Jennifer, who's behind the camera.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hey, Jen. When we were coming out here, I was waiting for her to show up in the Seattle airport, and I walked by Wired magazine, the latest Wired magazine, and it came up with a term that I just love, and I'm going to take my third edition and insert this term in a couple of places where it's a better term than the terms I've used, and that is feedback loop.
Yes.
I love that term. And that's what tweaking is. That's what iteration is in your book.
Yep,
I'm
absolutely.
a tweaker, you're an iterator. But feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about that this morning. I don't even remember what we were talking about, but it had to do with in getting the camera to work.
Yes.
This morning because of the frequency problem. So we try this, we get information back, we get more out, get it back until it's perfect. And so in your scenario of the house cleaner, my guess is it went for a few weeks, and Kelsey had to show her, no, you need to do this a little better over here, and you don't need to do that, and this and that. Probably took you a number of visits, feedback loop, to get it just right, and then she gets a certain amount, or you do, a certain amount of feedback every single time to see that the job is going well. But the point is, if the house cleaner comes in and does 3 or 4 hours of work, and you have 30 seconds in your feedback loop, your recurring feedback loop to see if he or she is doing all right, that's a big difference from 4 hours.
Yes.
30 seconds versus
Absolutely.
4 hours. And this is a perfect analogy for a business and how to set up a business. You want to be just checking the results and getting in that feedback loop the information you need to know that it's going well. There was another great part of your book. It talked about the beauty of automation, but the danger of automation.
Yes.
In that, if you're not, the trouble with automation is the manager, the leader of the automation, the leader of the project or the effort, whatever it is, tends to back off and not watch closely enough. And you talked about the silicon wafers that were being hole punched. And I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars you could lose, not just in wasted materials, but potential sales. The problem with automating is you don't want to get too far away from it, because when things go bad, they can go real bad.
Yes,
right?
and you need to be very on top of it, or it's going to continue and get worse and worse and worse and worse over time.
Yeah.
The classic example, which ended up not being the case, but was a major risk for a while, was Toyota.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, talk about a failure in a braking system that was multiplied millions upon millions of times over the course of years. And yeah, that's the kind of mistake that can potentially sink a company, and it happens because of automation. But the whole idea of a feedback loop, the output of one cycle becomes an input for the next cycle. That's really all it is. It applies to the rapid scale acquisition stuff too. So when you try something in the world, when you run an experiment, the faster you get those results and the more clearly you see how you performed, then you can make a tweak to the next cycle.
A little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better.
So it's like going to, if you're trying to learn golf, going to the driving range. Every time you swing the club, based on where the ball goes, you get some very quick feedback, and it's just that cycle. You repeat it over and over and over again, and it's the immediacy of the feedback that gives you the learning and helps you actually acquire the skill.
Driving the car.
Totally.
It's a total, how many times have we driven miles and miles and don't remember a thing we saw?
Yep.
Because the feedback loop, you turn the wheel just a little bit this way and you come this way, and it's automatic feedback loop. But if you're not managing properly, you're texting, it can go very bad
very quickly. Very quickly.
One of the other things that came to me between this second edition and my new third edition became much more clear to me was the idea that there's machinery down below.
Yes.
Down below. And then we're talking metaphysical stuff here, sort of. But so there's a machinery that creates the results. So what most people do in their businesses they don't understand, they don't see the machinery that's creating the results, or they don't see it clearly enough to spend any time down there underneath the surface, and very metaphorical here. What they're doing is they're trying to adjust the bad results up here on the surface of unmanaged systems.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And so when you go
or non-existent systems.
Non-existent systems, and so you go into a trade association of small businesses, and you'll find very few of those businesses, unless they're a franchise, of course. But if they're independent, in some independent trade association, and of course I talk about in the book the Answering Service Association. Mm-hmm. How many of you folks, 60 people out there, 60 owners of answering services, how many of you have written procedures? And one kind of lady
right.
I know from Canada, Sandy from Canada, kind of went like this. And I went, okay. I know, because I was shocked, because I had just first got a clue about this about a year before, and I'm kind of working through, and you can see I'm still working through. Nobody had any working procedures. They were killing fires, the same fires over and over. And the big topic at the trade association was, the work ethic is gone. I don't understand. I pay minimum wage, and I can't keep people. And they have bad attitudes. And even if I punish them,
right.
they come back.
Amazing.
I give them days off from work.
Amazing how that happens.
Yeah, and they come back with a bad attitude. What are we going to do? Yeah, what are we going to do? And so we come up with all these. At the staff meeting, we're going to have a game where you can win tickets to go to the movies. The tickets are in balloons, and you pop the right balloon, and you get the tickets. If you don't pop the right balloon, you don't get any tickets. Another guy I knew went to Disney World with his family and brought back a big bag of Mickey Mouse hats. And he was so proud. He got on the plane, and it was embarrassing. He had all these Mickey Mouse hats, and he handed them out to all his telephone service representatives. We got back, and everybody's going, oh, that's great. I'm saying, what? Are you crazy? These people now hate you. You have just found the key to getting everybody in your business to hate your guts.
Right.
What are they going to do with us?
Yeah.
Go home and put them on? You know, my boss went to Disney World and had a great time, and he brought me back these Mickey Mouse ears.
Yeah.
What we have to do is stop spending so much time on top of, go down into the machinery and find out what your people need. And one of the things we found was that people need to be paid. They need to be paid a lot. They're there for the money. And I'm sorry, Mr. Psychologist, Dr. Psychologist, or the academic. They're not there for fulfillment. They're there for a paycheck.
Totally. It's like Dan Pink mentions in the book Drive, his recent book about motivation. It's like for creative types of work, money is a motivator insofar as you want to pay people enough that they're just not worried about it. They're not thinking about it. And if they're not worried about money, they have far more time and energy to actually go and do the things to your business that actually make it. But if you're not paying people enough, that's a constant stressor, and it doesn't work.
I make that point, and I've learned to add, when I make the point, I make the additional point. Look, because I said the main reason for being here is money, doesn't mean you can treat them like children.
Totally.
They have to be treated well. But the main reason they're here is because they have to eat. And they have families to take care of. You have got to take care of that, and then you better make it good for them, and you better not treat them like children.
Yeah.
And you better let them be creative, and you better let them have the opportunity to make mistakes and not be chewed out.
Yeah.
And the money comes first. That's why they're there. Get used to it. Sorry about that, but that's sheer mechanics. Right?
Yeah, and you also, as the creator or owner of a business, want to give them an environment in which they have everything that they need to do the job that they were hired to do, and to learn and to make the mistakes and do all of those things, and to not freak out when something goes wrong. And so many of the people, one of the things that I hear over and over and over again, particularly people working in large corporations, is, oh my gosh, I am running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I'm fighting fires every day. Yeah, my BlackBerry is filling up, and so it kind of reminds me of a saying that Jim Rohn had talking with his interactions with his mentor, and his mentor would ask him, you've been doing this for 5 years. How's that working out for you? Is it working well? Is it giving you what you want? Are you happy? Or are there things that you're not so thrilled about? And if you're not thrilled about something, what can you do to change it on the systems level so it's not such a big deal? Or if there's a different way to get what you're ultimately looking for. And so a lot of the changes that I've personally made in my business and I recommend to my readers and my clients end up being systematic changes. It's things that you can do once, spend a little bit of time, a little bit of energy, change the system, change your environment, exert a little bit of willpower once, and then the ripple effect of that is just going to remove that stress or to get you that benefit over and over and over again. And that's where you start to see when somebody starts taking their business seriously and they start to make some of these systematic changes, they do just a couple little things and things turn around like this. And it's amazing. You know, I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off for 10 years now. I made 3 changes and now all of a sudden I'm not waking up stressed.
Now they're fanatics for it.
Exactly.
And then they're on their way. It's the same thing I run into my readers is, how do I get going? You know, I understand it's hard to get going, but just get going. Take your biggest problem and just do this thing. Write it out the linear way. Or, take a small problem. Fine. Whatever. Take something and start to see these immediate results. And I tell people they see results in a week to 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
And then at that point, they've gone over to the other side. They've come out of the dark side and they've gone over to the other side, and they just need a few hints. And that's the way my book is laid out. Once you get it, the rest is obvious, but here's a few tips for you.
Totally.
Over here. And then once somebody gets it, they don't let go.
Yes. Yeah.
Because why would you ever
exactly.
want chaos?
It's like most of my clients, you know, there's that initial resistance to wanting to do standard operating procedures and checklists and what. And it's just like, just try it. Just what's your biggest issue? What's the biggest frustration? What's sapping your time and energy? Let's just focus on that. And the big insight for me when I was doing both setting up my businesses and then doing the research for the book was that your willpower is not an inexhaustible resource. You only have so much.
It's a limited reservoir without an inlet.
Exactly. So it's like, you know, you have a certain amount to use. Think of it like willpower points, right? You have a certain number of willpower points to spend every day. And if every single thing that you have to do in a given day requires willpower, you're tired at noon, everything goes to crap, and you can't do the things you need to do to be successful. The big aha moment for me was, if we have that willpower to spend, the very best way to spend it is to spend it on changing your environment, changing the structure of the systems around you. Because our behavior is determined by what's around us. If you just spend a little time and energy and effort changing what's around you, or changing your systems or improving them in some way, you don't have to spend willpower on this stuff. It just...
Save the willpower for the creative stuff.
Exactly. Exactly.
The stuff that you do well. The reason that you're in business for yourself. Right.
Yeah. So make the change once and then reap the benefits of the system for however long you like. It's great.
We'll finish up here. Josh, one thing I really like about your story is how you started. You started with, you're a voracious reader, thousands of business books, incredible. But you created a database on a website which got enormous attention. So talk me through how that went, how you started that, and how it worked through to the point where you did the book.
Yeah, well, it started as a very personal project. I was graduating from school. I had a job. I felt like I had a lot more to learn about how businesses actually worked. But I already had a great job. I didn't want to quit that job and go back to school and borrow a bunch of money. So I walked myself down to the Cincinnati Public Library and every Barnes & Noble in the greater Cincinnati area. And I just started reading and researching.
And how old were you at this point?
I was just out of college, so I was 24.
24, and this was before Procter & Gamble?
This was, yeah. So I started as an intern at Procter & Gamble when I was still in college. And then worked for the company full-time afterwards.
So then what?
So, but all of the folks that I was working with, I was an assistant brand manager on the Mr. Clean brand, which was
Mr. Clean.
Very ironic.
The bald guy in the white clothes.
I had shaved my head 2 weeks before I found out my assignment, so everybody thought that was funny. But yeah, I was doing new product development for Mr. Clean. And all of the people I was going to be working with had MBAs from top schools. And I wanted to know what I felt they knew at the time. So that was really the genesis of the project. I had a lot of information I wanted to learn, and I just decided to do it myself. And so personalmba.com came out of taking this research that I was doing and wanting to share it with a bunch of people who are interested in the same thing. And at one point, Seth Godin was very kind and directed people to the resource that I had created, and things started snowballing from there. But really, it just comes down to the fact that there are millions of people in this world who want to learn business, who want to start their own business or move up at their job, or try something new, and they don't have a lot of time. They don't necessarily want to go into a whole lot of debt. They can't afford to necessarily do the research that I've done over the years. And so personalmba.com was really designed as a way of sharing all of this really useful information and the great resources that I found, and helping people all over the world learn business.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. It's been fun. It's really a tremendously rewarding project, particularly when I hear stories of people all over the world saying, you know, I started looking into this is one of the first resources that I found. And I read a couple books and I tried a couple things, and I started a new business, or my company turned around, or I'm making so much more money and I'm having so much more fun as a result of learning a few things that work.
What's interesting is that as you're talking here, I'm thinking, you actually went through this study process, started to put your book together, documented all this information, and now my guess is 98% of what you do is totally creative, fun stuff.
Yes.
There's the mechanics, but most of it's taken care of.
Yes. Right? Yep. I have some very clear systems and processes in publishing to my website, in working with my clients, in doing my billing, in working with contractors. All of those things are predefined, and so I spend most of my time researching and writing and finding new ways to help my readers.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you so much for writing your book and for teaching the world about this stuff. It's super important and it's super valuable.
And it's fun.
And fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Josh.
Yeah.